What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you another week of what's going on in pop culture. Only a few weeks left of the year. I'm Pat Sheehan, joined by my co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Heading down to our TV end of year list coming soon later this week. Music lists already out in the bag. Movies to come as well. Very exciting times to rank my things.
Yeah, that's how you know it's end of year time, when you start ranking things, because this is when you do it. This is just what you do in December, and
It's a habit.
it's fun to have so many like good movies to talk about. We have a good TV show to talk about today as well. So a lot of good stuff happening. But before we get too far into things, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. If you are listening on whatever platform, you can go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and find all the different ways to consume the podcast. Follow us on there too. Leave us a rating and review, and also follow us on Twitter at nostalgiapod. Dave, I went to my first live show since COVID broke. So it's been, I'm trying to think, because I went to a show and I was on Leap Day of 2020. So it was the 29th of February was my last show. COVID was very much a presence. Some people were masked. I remember at one point I dropped some chapstick and was just like, well, never gonna touch that chapstick again. People, they made sure bathrooms were already like one entrance you had to go in and one you had to leave out of. So it was very present, but not obviously to the shutdown level yet. Still a couple weeks
Sacrificing your
away.
chapstick like that, bold.
Yeah, well, at the time we weren't educated on what this COVID was quite yet, or at least I wasn't. Other
Correct.
people probably
Yeah,
were more
right.
than I was. So, that was Celine Dion, which is like kind of a weird like last show for me to see before COVID. I saw Vampire Weekend a month before, and that was awesome. Celine Dion was great, but like just not totally my cup of tea. What was your last show before COVID?
YBN Corday and 24K
Mm,
Golden.
the good one.
Yeah, around the same time. Corday
Well,
switched his name since then.
yeah. Yeah, drop the YBN, just Corday. But I got to see probably my favorite live band, live performance, live show last night, as LCD Soundsystem is performing a 20 show residency that started back on November 23rd and is running until the 21st of December at Brooklyn Steel, which, at least when it opened, was part owned by James Murphy. I'm not sure if he's a part owner still. I'd have to look into that more. But pretty much whenever LCD wants to play Brooklyn Steel, they just get to play as many shows as they want, and it always sells out. And tickets, get bought out in seconds, and the prices get jacked up. So it's always exciting when they come. Brooklyn Steel is a good venue to see them too, because it's only about 2,000 people max. So it's a pretty intimate setting for an LCD show. It was weird, I will say that, being at a concert again, just kind of like, some people had masks, some didn't. Some people were being respectful. Other people were very much just back to like olden times, bumping into people, didn't really care, being, scallywags and whatnot. But gotta say, this definitely felt like an LCD warm up show. And I only say that, not that the show was bad. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought the band sounded great for the most part. They played a lot of deep cuts, a couple of songs from like early records that they haven't played since like 2007. One of the songs that they're playing again in live shows. It's called On Repeat, and this is their first time performing in 3 years, these shows. So they're obviously trying to get back in shape. They've already been announced as headliners for a couple of festivals next year. So they're just trying to get back in the swing of things. Um, yeah, they played some deep cuts, which a lot of people in the crowd didn't know or didn't respond to. At least the way that they wanted to. James Murphy at one point even said like, yeah, we're doing a lot of shows, so we're just switching it up a little bit. You guys probably don't know these songs as well, so we're just doing it for us. And everybody's like, okay, whatever. They still sounded cool. But man, when LCD Sound System plays, shuts up and plays the hits, man, they fucking rock still. And there really is like nothing like hearing songs like All My Friends, Dance Yourself Clean, even songs like Daft Punk is playing at my house, just the energy that comes along with that. And the whole crowd is like singing and like you can kind of feel the movement in it. It's just a different energy and really nice to have live music back. I will say, I wish they played a few less songs from their newest album, American Dream, which we did review. Check out that review on Spotify or on YouTube, I should say. Um, especially Emotional Haircut. I don't know if you remember that song, Dave, but yesterday when they played it, it all just sounded like one sound. It like everything kind of blended together. I'm not sure if it was the acoustics of Brooklyn Steel. I don't know if it was something with the band. I guess on a couple of shows, or at least on one of the shows early on, they blew out some of their equipment unexpectedly. So maybe they're still having some technical issues with some of the songs. But it just sounded really uncharacteristically uh, like blended together, which is not usually how I experience the LCD song. So it's a little taken aback by that. But gotta say, still awesome to see LCD Sound System live. If you can ever catch a show, highly recommend. Just try to get tickets right when they come out because they get jacked up quick. But
Yeah, yeah. In
Dave,
general, I've maybe this is pent up demand with COVID. I've noticed that ticket demand is high in
oh yeah,
Ticketmaster. They don't give a fuck if a bot buys it. They just want to sell it. So
yeah, I heard you
it's
couldn't get those Rodrigo tickets.
I just no. Well, a lot of people expressed disappointment in Olivia Rodrigo ticket availability, but she is playing smaller venues. No,
Yeah.
I did. I struggled to get Charlie XCX tickets, and I was even like
Ooh,
queued in the line before they went on sale and everything, and I still didn't get them,
damn,
which
that's
was a
crazy.
big bummer. So probably gonna shell out twice as much as I should have had to pay to see it later. So yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it works. But live music is nice to have back. People just get boosted, please. But
yeah,
why don't we move on from music onto something we just want to touch on real quick? The Golden Globes announced their nominees today, nominations.
yep.
Um, we're not really going to talk too much about the nominations, I guess, so much as what do we make of the Golden Globes this year? Obviously, we've talked a lot about the issues with the Hollywood Foreign Press, accusations of racist practices, corruption. There's a lot of articles out there. You can go back and check our
Yeah.
breakouts on that. But
LA
Dave, what do you
Times
make
big
of?
report, I think, really shed
Yes,
light on
yeah,
it. This was like right before the last Golden Globes happened, beginning of 2021. So people have to like know the story at this point. But yeah, it is funny to see the HFPA announce nominations for the forthcoming Golden Globes that apparently are happening in the beginning of January. um, was not on my radar. Was not thinking about it. I mean, we've long talked about how the Globes do not matter as like a body of prestige because again the awards and the nominations have so much corruption and lack of credibility associated with them, especially when compared to a much larger representative body of people in the industry like the Academy. But it's still funny to see them announce nominations this year on a bare bones live stream with like no advertisements and really no uh, star power celebrity in the mix apart from I believe Snoop Dogg was
yeah.
involved on the mic, but like it
Cash that
seemed
check.
yeah, Snoop gets paid to do a lot of stuff these days. Good for him, I guess. But yeah, I guess it's just a continuity play, right? They're hoping that in the future they can get back on TV. NBC has dropped them for this year, and they just nominate people on their own. No one had to submit. It did seem like all the studios weren't going to bother submitting based on what they had said when all the things got blown up beginning of this year. So will they come back to the fore with participation from talent in 2023? Who can say? But this is basically what they're trying to do to at least have that option.
So are you even like going to pay attention to what comes out of the Globes this year, or is it just kind of like doesn't matter to you at all?
No, I mean in general, I would always pay attention just as like not that it's an Oscar predictor, but it can in a
Shapes the
sense,
conversation.
yeah, influence opinion because it is a relatively popular award show as far as award show popularity goes. When people would go, they would be looser, they'd be drunker, just be a better like TV experience. And there also would be crazy noms, obviously, with like the drama and comedy categories. TV's there too, everyone knows. So yeah, I think in general, like it doesn't seem like anyone's gonna acknowledge it this year. So I feel like paying attention to it is just kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, it's pointless. I felt the same way. And, even just looking at the nominations, I was just kind of like, it's cool to see people I like nominated, but what does this mean? Like seeing Jane Campion on there, I was like, well, I hope she gets nominated at the Oscars, but
Yeah.
this doesn't mean shit this year.
Yeah, the one nom that stood out to me is like, oh, Denis Villeneuve got in there for best director because he's very much fighting for a spot with
Yeah.
many other big name directors. So that's something I'm actually rooting for to happen for the Oscars. But like, yeah, I mean, a lot of usual suspects, I guess. You had Rita Moreno get nominated alongside Rachel Ziegler with West Side Story. That's something to watch, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I would say this is as unrepresentative and irrelevant as the Globes has ever been, and they're hoping to obviously fix that. But again, on the other hand, they're self-policing and self-reforming, so
Right.
they have to do a lot to try and earn back that trust. And in general, it's only the Hollywood foreign press. It's not like something people care about too much in the first place. So it's what it is.
Yeah, it feels like the Globes are finally being seen for what they've always been. Just took people exposing corruption to get there. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we're gonna move forward from. One second, we're gonna move forward. We're gonna move forward from the Golden Globes onto music, which is it feels like deja vu, Dave, because we're talking about Tierra Whack 2 weeks in a row.
Nice. After not
Yeah,
talking about it too much in the past 4 years.
yeah, and it's not a lot of music we're talking about. Another 3 songs dropped. We knew this was coming. Pop. I don't know
Yeah.
how you say
Yeah. Pop question mark.
it. You just say the question mark. All right.
Yeah, I feel like with like album titles and stuff, it's hard to communicate the inflection. You should
Mhm.
just say it like you're reading subtitles or something.
Yeah. No, I agree. But yeah, so Tierra Whack last week dropped rap question mark, and this week dropped pop question mark. And gotta say, rap we were a little disappointed by.
Mm.
I liked a lot of what we got on pop a lot more than what we got on rap. Felt just a lot more. Uh, felt like it actually fit more with what she's been doing on the songs. It's a lot like these songs were very catchy to me and just kind of like stuck in my head, whereas the rap ones I felt were pretty unmemorable. Did you get that? Have the same experience with
Yeah,
these?
definitely, definitely. It's not that she's not rapping. It's not that it's not hip hop. It's not really
Mhm.
pop. It's just she's singing a little bit more and doing more melodic stuff. But I mean, Body of Water, that song, that hook, very reminiscent of one of the best songs off Whack World, Pet Cemetery. You
Mhm.
know, it's not different from what she was doing on Whack World if you really think about it. Again, as I noted last week, I really liked her loose single "Only Child" from a few years ago. That's a song where, yeah, there's a bit of singing. It's not the hardest bars we've heard Tierra Whack lay down. But this felt like music we've heard from her before, but also like some of her best. So I like this direction from her, and in general, like we said last week, just curious to see if there's another EP to come, a bigger projects coming down the line. Obviously, we just would love to hear more from Tierra Whack, whatever she seems to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. Body of Water was the clear standout because of that hook and just like everything around it just sounded amazing. I already put it on our Nostalgia Best of 2021. Check that out on Spotify. But I really liked Lazy with the guitars that sounded very uh, pop 80s popish, which is a sound that a lot of people have been riffing off of. And then Dolly surprised me a lot, just being this like stripped back acoustic, almost like country-ish type sound. Which I mean, we talked last week. Her, we grade her on a curve because she is so boundary pushing and inventive and unique. And this is the sort of stuff I love hearing from her. Is like the stuff you don't expect to hear. So Really enjoyed Pop a lot more. Any last thoughts, or do you want to move on to a little juicier? All right, let's move on to Rick Ross. Oh, uh, dropping another album. I didn't write down which number this was.
Richer than I've ever been. His 11th studio
11th.
album.
I was
Rick
gonna say
Ross,
like 10th, so I was
yeah,
close.
45 years old. Been in the game a long time. 11 albums now.
And I'm pretty. I think we've reviewed one or two
Yeah.
since we've been doing the pod, but
We're in
the
Miami too in 2019 was the last one we talked about.
the real like the thing about Rick Ross is he's just like the best feature guy in the game. Although slowly 21 Savage is taking that title over, and 21 Savage appears on this album,
Ah,
and I think has a really great feature. But or maybe not top tier Savage. We'll talk about it, but it's still memorable for sure. Um, and I never felt like he put out like an album I was like super blown away by. Like I was always like, oh, that's pretty solid, but I never was like that's a classic album. Have you felt that way? I know some people really like his one from a few years back. What's it called? Uh
I mean, I'd say if anything is close to that kind of status, it'd probably be like Teflon Don 2010.
yeah.
But I'd say no. He doesn't have one of those albums. He hasn't had one of those careers. I mean, I'd say like half of his albums are pretty unmemorable. But Port of Miami 2 was a welcome return to form, or at least return to more familiar quality from Rick Ross. And I like to think that's continued richer than I've ever been. It's nice to see the consistency we expect from Ross with features to now at least be coming out more on his own solo projects.
Yeah, I agree. I think this album is not it wouldn't have made my top 10 list if it came out a little earlier for this year, but it has enough tracks on here where I left being like that was solid, and I really enjoyed some moments, and I really enjoyed some features on this, and just overall he's making really competent music, and I don't think there's anything here that you can knock too much. Um, what were the tracks that stood out to you most?
Yeah, good question. I quite enjoyed the opener, Little Havana, featuring Willie Falcone, a real life, gangster,
Mhm.
weight pusher figure. Nice contrast, or comparison to the persona Rose has had in rap for some time now. But I mean, that just I think the flow is good. Ross in general, I think sounds good in the whole album. But I just really loved his Omarion diss. I released Omarion. He began to fizz, obviously one of his former signees to Maybach Music Group, and yeah, I thought his flow on that was pretty good, and he had the standout quotable.
Yeah, I love the bass on that where it's like wow wow wow, just really sticky bass on that. I thought that was great. I mentioned the track with 21 Savage and Jasmine Sullivan, an artist we mentioned on our best of the year, not as someone that made our list because we missed her album last year, but someone that is getting a lot of acclaim on end of year list for having a great record from 2021.
Right.
But I really liked Outlaws a lot. It kind of reminds me of everything that I want in a Rick Ross song. Is it just sounds like really badass, and him and Savage just play off each other really well. And then you got Jasmine Sullivan singing uh like a nice little breakdown in the middle, and sounds great to me. I don't know. Did you like that track?
Yeah, no, totally. For those reasons, I don't think it's like one of the best 21 features we've got, but it certainly isn't the first bad 21 feature we've gotten in ages.
Right.
It's still good. Pistol talking back, I think it heard it cursing at me or something. 21 just has a unique voice and personality at this point. It's always great to hear him just be a contrast when he shows up on someone else's work.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. What other tracks stood out to you?
Yeah, so I liked rappers' Estates with the Butcher coming, Benny the
hmm
Butcher. Specifically, the beat on that, the horns really stood out to me. And then on the other side of things, right after that, you had Marathon, where I didn't really like Ross on that. I didn't really like his flow. I thought it was kind of a weak flow, but the beat like really reminded me of like a thriller movie.
hmm
Not quite a drill beat, but still kind of ominous and eerie.
Yeah, no, it definitely had that eerie vibe to it for sure. Um, what'd you think of the song "Warm Words in a Cold World" with Wale and Future?
I've never been a Wale guy, never been a Future guy, so didn't really change my opinion.
Yeah, stacked up against you there. I kind of liked the sound of it. I don't know if it was like exactly what it was, but not so much Wale and Future's features, but more so just like the overall vibe of it. I think it was like the snap clap to it, and then
Mhm.
having, like you mentioned, the horns on it, kind of rising and falling around their rapping. I thought sounded just really cool. Um, but yeah, I don't think the rapping on that is anything to write
Yeah.
home about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the only song I really disliked was "Can't Be Broke." I just didn't really care for the singing on that. But I thought the Dream Doll feature was pretty solid. I even thought the Wiz Khalifa feature was pretty solid. Wiz just dropped a tape with, I believe, Cardo, which I haven't listened to yet. But I always enjoy hearing a solid Wiz feature just because he's not quite as active as he used to be.
Where does like what is Ross's like status in the rap world right now? Just kind of like, is he in the like the two chains like territory where he's gonna put out some okay records and just do some good features and that's kind of it now?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's about right because he's a peer of like Two Chains and like Pusha T, but I think critically and culturally pushes at like a slightly different level due to his association with Kanye's beef, with Drake, things like that. But yeah, I think Ross is very firm in his status. He's
Mhm.
not as popular as the other label heads. He never has been, but it feels like he's really like solidified his output these days. And I mean, it's funny to think about him like this, but he's only 3 years younger than Nas. So
Oh wow.
yeah, he's 45. Nas is 48. Obviously, we've known about Nas since I mean,
Yeah, he
he
was a
was
teenager.
he was notorious before I was a coherent person.
Yeah.
Since the 90s. Ross hasn't been like that, right? Culturally, Ross didn't really make any noise till the second half of the 2000s, but he seems to in older age, getting his fitness a little bit more under control. He seems to just be really solid and secure. And yeah, I don't think he's dropping any classics, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a slight step up and we get something on par like the King's Disease albums that Nas just released. So it doesn't sound like washed by any means, despite the
No,
age.
definitely not. Yeah, I think it's just nice to hear him like making competent music, and it seems kind of effortless at this point for him. So, like you said, I think there's a potential to even get something greater than this moving forward. Um, Dave, unfortunately, someone that we're not going to be getting something better than what we got this week probably is Juice World. Obviously we've talked about Juice World. I can't remember. Were we recording when his death was announced? Was that him?
No, we were
No, that
recording
was
when
that was
XX and
X.
Tentacion
Yes.
died. But Juice WRLD did die about 2 years ago,
Yep.
right around this
2019.
time, December 2019. Obviously, accidental overdose. Unfortunate circumstances leading to that accidental overdose. It's not even like, say, Mac Miller's death. It's more of like a case of trying to avoid the cops. Like it's a really shitty situation. And anyway, Juice has been gone 2 years. We have a documentary, Juice WRLD Into the Abyss, coming out on HBO Max later this week. The last HBO Ringer Music Box documentary, and this second posthumous album, Fighting Demons, is the soundtrack of sorts for that forthcoming documentary. And as I said, second posthumous album from Juice. We just had the second posthumous album from Pop Smoke, and clearly that was a step in the wrong direction as the material has fizzled away. Right around that first posthumous album from Pop Smoke was also the first posthumous album from Juice WRLD, which was a huge success, one of the biggest albums, biggest streaming projects of 2020. Legends Never Die. And, I wasn't anticipating a second Juice posthumous album just because of the inevitable diminishing returns and the persistent ethical questions that concern posthumous records. But we still got one. Here it is, Fighting Demons. What do you think?
I was pleasantly surprised, not gonna lie. I, you know, as you mentioned, we had Legends Never Die. This was supposed to be called The Party Never Ends, and then it
Hmm.
got scrapped, and we're supposed to be getting a third posthumous Juice World album
Yeah.
called Party Never Ends next year, which I don't have high hopes for. But I think what I liked most about this was a lot of these songs did not have features, so they felt like at least somewhat probably what he was going for in terms of the songs, so that it felt a bit more maybe genuine or in line with what you hope Juice was trying to make with these songs. And then I feel like the features we did get were okay. Like they weren't necessarily like the best thing ever for me, but I felt like they were serviceable. A couple of songs I really liked. Overall, I mean, these posthumous albums always feel a bit grimy. I think. I think the only one that didn't really was probably Circles with Mac Miller. That
Right.
one felt pretty true to what
Because
felt
he
like
had been
Mac's
working on
artistic.
that so much on his own. It's just kind of a different circumstance.
Right. Um, but overall, I wasn't as like I didn't feel like this was as bad as I expected it to be. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, in general, I thought Legends Never Die last year was a pleasant surprise. It wasn't
Mhm.
quite as revelatory as, say, that first Pop Smoke album, but still pretty solid. You know, this one, I'd say it's okay. I do welcome that there's very few features. Obviously, that was a big issue with the second Pop Smoke posthumous album, which clearly is a form of padding because you kind of ran out of stuff because they're no
Yep.
longer with us. It makes sense. So you don't have that problem with this fighting demons, but I think there's a few moments where it's like, oh, that's like a classic Juice song. Like nice that they found that one. That one sounded pretty finished. Then there's some other ones that I'm like, yeah, this was like half a song and kind of annoying. I think in general, probably the biggest like posthumous sin, the normal caveats we think about is some of the beat selection. Like you
Mhm.
have on Not Enough. That's a Dr. Luke beat. I have a hard time thinking that was the beat that Juice World had originally intended when he, had made that demo or whatever
Yeah.
form it was in. Uh, on the other hand, From My Window, the guitars on that beat do kind of remind me of the beat from Black and White off
Yep.
the first Juice World album. So it's not like anything is out of the realm of possibility for him. To the features, I thought the Justin Bieber feature on what was it, something
Wander to
LA,
LA.
Wander to LA. I thought the Bieber feature just kind of like didn't really fit the song
Hmm.
super well. It was a fine performance from Justin. It just kind of felt like a copy paste to me. And I think the weirdest one, honestly, was Suga from BTS. Obviously, Suga is one of the rappers in BTS, but it just feels like a kind of opportunistic pairing between two people that never met.
Yeah. I felt like that was definitely weird when I saw it on the track list. Um, I thought it sounded okay, but I just was kind of I agree. It was kind of like I don't know if these people would have actually worked together in real life. What'd you think of Polo G and Trippy Red on Feline?
Yeah, I thought they were okay, but I still didn't really love the song. Polo G was also on Legends Never Die. I didn't really care for that song either. Disappointing considering they're both from Chicago and they did know each
Mhm.
other. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded a Kid Leroy feature on this, given their friendship in life and obviously the big year Kid Leroy had in 2021,
Yeah,
and he would have been on the first album. I thought that would have actually made some sense. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think lyrically, thematically, it's all the things you expect from Juice, right? It's a lot of really dark, morbid, but personal lyrics about his need, desire to self-medicate to go through life and things of that nature. It's that emo rap, that melodic crooning rap that you expect from Juice.
yeah.
I
No,
honestly
and
thought, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say to that point. I think he the my favorite moments on this album were when it felt like the song was definitely something he crafted, and that was very in line with that. Like my probably my favorite track off this is "Feel Alone," which is just like very sing songy, but I feel like you can really feel the emotion and lyrically a pretty like deep song. Talking about some of his demons, but also like wrestling with like love and loss, and um, I think that's probably the thing I took away most from this was if I felt like I got a little bit more about Juice World as a person from this album, or at least whatever they
Mm.
were trying to get across. And what I think they're probably going to try to show in the documentary coming out later this week about him struggling with mental health issues, wanting to be a leader in that sphere for Black men and other Black people to be able to talk about mental health and
Right.
emotions and his struggles. I, to that point though, I wanted to ask you how you felt about Eminem kind of showing up and talking about his struggles with addiction.
Yeah, so I believe the moments of Juice talking were cut from a Billboard interview Juice gave in March 2019. Cool to see that reused. I think that's an effective form of interlude for an album like this. I honestly really like the Eminem
Me too.
spot there. Made complete sense. Uh, shows the other side of this thing when you're a superstar, just completely lost in the abyss like this. And Eminem luckily was able to find his way out of that, as everyone knows, because it happened so publicly. But that wasn't like a quick hitter either. Like Eminem really talked about it for a minute and a half or something. I thought that was uh it's tough to hear, but it's also nice to hear from Eminem. And
That
he's not that I haven't been high in Eminem's music for quite some time, but Juice had been used on one of the recent Eminem albums, so it's nice to see Eminem kind of return that favor on this.
Yeah, totally. And I thought it was the best thing we've heard from Eminem on one of his albums in a very long time.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. Um, so I cut you off before. What were you going to say?
Oh, I don't even remember at this point
Oh,
now.
okay.
I say my favorite song on this is "Already Dead," which was the first single. That feels and sounds like a completely finished song. Very Juice, very reminiscent, and the lyrics, him literally talking about how he's already dead, obviously really on the nose. Kind of reminds me of on the last posthumous album where Juice was saying, I forgot the song, he was saying, I know my lyrics changed you. Once again, just kind of speaking directly to his ardent fans. On the other side of things, I thought Go Hard, Doom, and was it Prime? What was that song called? Go Hard, Doom, and Rockstar in his prime. I thought all those hooks were really poor and an example of what an unfinished posthumous snippet being made into a song after death sounds like. The verses on Rockstar's Prime, not too bad, but those hooks in particular, I think, are great examples of what can go wrong when you just don't have enough to really finish the song. But overall, I don't think this is nearly as bad as that second pop album, which was an abomination, honestly.
Yeah, I think in some respects, outside of those posthumous albums, I feel just like a cash grab. I think people are starting to take a little bit more care with these and trying to be a little bit more true to the artist. I think obviously the reception to Circles probably gave a good blueprint for how to try to go about it. I mean, obviously, you're not going to always have it where the artist is working on a concept album like that or have a concept for an album similar to Mac had for Circles, but I think it seems like, and this might just be totally anecdotal, but it feels like they're getting a little bit better the posthumous album. So let's hope. But we're gonna move on from music now and head into Succession season 3, wrapping up last night. Uh, man, so I wasn't able to watch it last night because I was at the show.
Right.
And I stayed off Twitter. And this
Wise.
morning I woke up super early because I just had it on the brain. I was like, I have to go see what happened on Succession. And I watched it at like 6:30 in the morning. And I just sat on my couch for like a half hour afterwards. Like, holy shit. This season of television was so awesome. I mean, we're like you mentioned, we're gonna be doing our best of the year, best TV of the year, end of the week. I have a feeling we'll be talking about this again very soon. Uh, but Dave, just your overall reactions to season 3 of Succession.
Oh yeah. I mean, loved it. Best show on TV. Spoilers for the list.
Yeah.
Great season. The end of the season is dynamite, and the finale is some of the most riveting television I've ever watched, especially the second half of the finale.
Mhm.
You go from this incredible scene between the three siblings, Roman, Shiv, and Kendall. Kendall confessing finally to the waiter he killed, the sin that's been hanging over him and haunting him for so long, confessing to that, and then in a sense rallying with his two siblings as a way to finally take down the dad they hate, or at least two of them hate, Logan, and yet it ends in the way only Succession could. I thought it was an absolutely incredible ending.
Yeah. Uh, the arc of the season was so fascinating, right? So season 2 wraps up with Kendall versus Logan. Kendall going public that Logan was aware of all the corruption, the assaults, and the sexual abuse going on under Waystar's watch, and basically setting it up where he's gonna expose all of that and then make a play to take over the business. And pretty much like the season was just Logan beating Kendall down every step of the way. Nothing Kendall tried
Mhm.
worked, and just seeing Kendall be ground to a pulp.
Yeah.
And so when you get that moment where Kendall and Roman and Siobhan are just sitting there talking, and Jeremy Strong is putting on a fucking clinic, dude. I'm blown into a million pieces. I'm so fucking lonely. Like that right there would have been the highlight of most shows seasons. Like that just would have been like even some shows that would have been like the apex moment of their whole run. And
Yeah.
then you just go into this incredible 20 minutes of just like we're making a play, we're going to do this, and that final showdown between Logan and his kids is just so fucking brutal. And this show just makes everything just comes together so perfectly. A line that Tom says at the end of I think the first episode. I'm gonna get what's the name like Daryl Hedden on this or something like this. I want to speak to him about this, and then you hear I don't remember if it was Carl or Frank go. Don't worry about it. We have Daryl Hedden on this, and you just know like Tom is the Judas. Tom
Mm,
pulled it off. He finally did what he hasn't been able to do to Siobhan. And then you
yeah.
see the Godfather shot, dude. It's just all so fucking good.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, to quote Tom's line to Kendall a few episodes back after they talk,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've never seen Logan get fucked once. And like
Yeah.
he's like, I see you get fucked all the time, however he says it. It's,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the thing is, and what makes the show so great, and I think why Jesse Armstrong, the showrunner, the
Yeah.
main writer, Jesse Armstrong needs to be elevated to the top tier of TV creators. Obviously, that he doesn't have the volume of shows the way some of the elites do, but as far as one show creators, like he is definitely up there now. Armstrong knows that we don't like these people. They're all bad people. The show doesn't shy away from that. But at the end, you're still rooting for them and you feel like absolute dog shit when Logan wins again. And it's kind of crazy because in this season, season 3, Roman has never been less likable. Shiv has
Yep.
never been less likable, right? Roman really just openly flirting with the darkest corners of the right
Political
political
world.
movement.
Mm-hmm.
Shiv really showing her true colors as a careerist and how she tried to strong arm Jerry, and also
Mm-hmm.
just the terrible wife and partner that she is to Tom, right? Like, and obviously we know how broken Kendall is, and the show makes it clear in this season how terrible he is to his family, just as kind of an absent dad, and how hypocritical he is as a performative, reformer in his attempts to take over the company, right? Like they've all been broken down and made irredeemable in a sense. But the finale still finds a way to bring everyone's rooting interest back on them once again. And then you have Tom's revenge. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's a great point. And, I was really left with that thought today, and I was like, why do I want these people to win? Like, I shouldn't feel bad for them right now. I shouldn't feel so gutted by them losing to Logan because when you think about it, the only two people on the show who are like central characters in any way that are not completely terrible people are Tom, who's kind of terrible by association,
Yeah. He's
and
like a
Greg.
just terrible rich person, Greg, kind of. little dim-witted,
Yeah.
opportunistic, now rich person. You know,
And,
they're not as malevolent as the others, but they're not like great either.
and then you get this amazing back and forth between them. And, just shout out uh, McFadden and Braun, who just like
Yep.
their chemistry together is incredible and just always like the comedic highlight for me of every episode is usually their back and forth. But where Tom says, like, "Are you willing to sell your soul to do this?" And Greg's like, "Who needs a soul? Souls aren't fun anyway," or something like that. Whatever he
Yeah.
says.
Boom. Soulless.
Yeah, just
Amazing scene.
and just eh, like I think on a lot of shows, that sort of writing would have been taken as like, "Oh, that's really like too on the nose," but it just fits those characters so perfectly. And
Yeah.
it just explains everything about the situation so well. Just
Right.
incredible.
Right. And that's the thing. I think there's been some talk. I wouldn't even call it crazy. But there's some talk that Succession season 3, especially in the first half, the plot was spinning a little bit. Right. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe I kind of see what's going to happen here. Logan will not pick any of his kids to succeed him. Kendall will fail once again to beat his dad, and there won't be too much plot movement. And I guess in a macro sense, that is kind of true for the first half of the season. But the reason I don't think it holds much water is kind of what I said before: is the show is so involved in coloring in and deepening the characterization of our central cast here. Like I said about what's changed and progressed with Kendall, with Roman, with Shiv, with Tom due to his relationship with Shiv, and heck, even with Connor in this finale. You know, Connor finally uh, letting loose. I'm the older son. You know,
Mhm.
Connor is largely there for comic relief and as a tier down as a part of the ensemble. But even him, they found a way to enrich even more. You know, so I just feel like the arc of the season, the way the season ends, going into the finale, like everything just felt like of a piece, and it's been developed, it's been written to this point. Everything just makes complete sense. It's so great. Obviously, alongside that, you have amazing production values. They literally, yeah, they go to Tuscany for a
Yeah,
long period of time. They were in Tuscany a long time, man. It looks amazing.
incredible,
You know,
dude.
with the wedding as a setting, like it's so good, and
Yeah,
and the acting has never been better.
well, I definitely want to talk about the performances this season. Just to there's not a better looking show on television, and you just think about some of the shots from just this finale. We won't even talk about the rest of the season. We'll just kind of mention that shot of Roman going on the boat, like out to see Alexander Skarsgård's character. I forgot
Yes,
his name.
the Gojo founder.
Yes, amazing, amazing filming there. But then the picture we both have as our backgrounds, that scene where Jeremy Strong's Kendall is breaking down, and Roman is leaning over, holding his shoulders, and Shiv is touching his head, and then in the final scene, it's reversed where Roman's
Yeah.
on the floor, totally gutted, and Kendall's holding his shoulder or holding his shoulders. It's amazing that how that sort of thing happens. And I was
Mhm.
thinking about Succession season two's finale, which it might be one of the most beautifully shot television episodes of all time. And I was like, there's no way they could ever like top that. If anything even comes close, it'd be really impressive. And I think some of the shots in this episode and just in this whole season rivaled it, or at least come close. So it's a total masterpiece in my opinion from all perspectives. And you mentioned the performances. Who did you feel like was like the best performer this season on the show? Who gave
Yeah,
the
I'd say it's
MVP?
Kieran Culkin as Roman because I mean he's had his best material yet as Roman, right? Roman's been further colored in. His relationship with Logan, with his dad, is further developed. His own uh, psychological ups and downs, more further exposed. And I think Culkin, he's just such a master with Armstrong's writing, and he knows how. Like, it's funny to see his performance alongside Jeremy Strong's Kendall performance because they're so different, but they just both fit the show because again, the characters are so established at this point. And yeah, I think Culkin's incredible.
Yeah. Uh he definitely this is definitely the Roman season, and seeing his arc from kind of being like the third fiddle in the last couple seasons to basically being the number one boy this season, so to speak. And Logan, it feels like grooming him to be his right hand man, potentially the successor to the company. Uh, and then when it comes down to brass tacks and Logan's looking to sell the company, he just sends him away. And the way Culkin's character rose and fell this season, and some of the moments like after Kendall's birthday party episode at the end, when after Roman shoved him and Kendall falls and everybody leaves very upset, is almost like Joker like. The look on Roman's face walking home alone in the streets. And the way that the camera just kind of like walked with him, like close up on his face, just incredible. Or the dick pic episode, the penultimate episode,
Right.
and his facial expressions in that alone
Yeah.
are worth all the money for this season. And then you get that final scene and the look on his face as he's pleading to Jerry to just like help, and she turns him down because it's not in her self-interest. Just like a masterpiece of acting, and he was so impressive this season.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even the scene where Kendall breaks down, I thought he was really good in that too, where in his own Roman way, trying to comfort Kendall. Really good. Obviously, in the penultimate episode, you have the cliffhanger of sorts about Kendall. Did he pass out and drown in the pool? He doesn't. And I thought if that had happened, I think it would have worked because you had so much finality with his late night conversation with Logan, and like the say the relationship is made so clear. But then the way they bring him back into the fold and end up having him reconcile with his siblings around, just his own their own, fucked up love for each other, and then later their desire to, beat dad. I thought, it made perfect sense that he didn't die because they had so much more to do. And then you get again the confession scene, as you said, is just such a pinnacle moment.
Yeah, Tolkien I think deserves the Emmy for sure, but you know everybody on this season I felt like was some of their best work. I think about uh, Sarah Snook as Siobhan,
Yeah.
and man, that the scene, the conversation between her and her mom in the penultimate episode, and then just like how that all plays out between her and Tom, you know, just is so impressive. I loved that the way that they shot the breakfast scene between her and Tom. The morning after they have the denigrating sex, and man, just the way it like walks around with them and is so tight on them, and you can just see like McFadden every single like emotional bone in his body just being snapped in half as Shiv is just obviously toying with him and keeping him on this leash. And pretty much the night before said everything that she's been wanting to say, that she doesn't really love him. She thinks that he's not good enough for her.
Doesn't want to have his babies.
Yep, absolutely brutal. Um, but I love Sarah Snook this season as well, and it's funny because I think Shiv as a character is just. I mean, Roman says it. She's the girl. She's not part of the boys' club, and for that reason, she gets kind of sidelined within some of the ventures of the business. But I think Siobhan plays such a central like middleman in a way. It felt like at any point she could teeter back to Kendall's side, and I felt like that was so
Mm,
important to kind of keep some of the wheels spinning when maybe it felt like the show wasn't going as many places people
yeah.
wanted it to go.
Right. And the thing, even like in the early goings where the plot may not be have as much forward momentum as some people like, you still have an awesome one-off episode with Adrian Brody as
Yeah.
a large scale shareholder
Mhm.
in Waystar Royco. It's really awesome to see a different side of Brody than we've come to expect in, like, say, his frequent roles in Wes Anderson films. I thought he was great. I thought that moment was great, and the early goings where Logan's like mental fitness or physical fitness is a little more questionable, right? Where he's like piss mad and stuff. I really like how all that worked, but the Brody moment in the beginning, and then even Skarsgård in the end of the season, just great pieces of stunt casting.
Absolutely. No, I loved. I think his name is Matson, Skarsgård's character, or something like that.
Yes. Yep.
I really enjoyed his presence on the show, and Skarsgård's somebody that I feel like has really leaned into these like weird, like asshole parts recently. But hearing him talk in his like native accent, be this like really weird guy and someone that Logan obviously sees as like kind of in the same ilk as himself, I thought was really interesting. And Skarsgård played it perfectly. Like he really felt very convincing and almost like intimidating in his role as Matson. Um, we haven't talked a lot about uh, McFadden as Tom, but I felt like he almost had like the most thankless role, and then gets like the biggest payoff there at the end, obviously. But him and him for the first couple parts of the season is just sitting there as like the sacrificial lamb and dealing with his feelings about potentially going to jail, and then you know deciding how he wants to play that out, what he wants to do, and then it's about him wanting Shiv to love him, which is kind of like what he's wanted. He kind of wants family too. It seems. When Logan called him son, he called him Papa. When he's pissed mad. So like there are those moments, but uh, I just feel like him and Nicholas Braun kind of got sidelined a little bit at times this
Sure.
season. But not everybody can get the ball all the time, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you get the falling out between Braun and was it James Cromwell,
Hmm.
Logan's brother, and then alongside that, you kind of get Braun's like questionable foray into romantic pursuits with Comfrey and then the other person at the wedding. I did enjoy that. Like, I don't think there's any like wasted material on like the people that are on the outside. Even like Fisher Stevens just being a bigger part of the administration of the company. Like he's just awesome in that like communications role.
Yeah. I feel like the corruption of Greg is one of the most like or one of the least talked about aspects of this season because Greg kind of teetering on the like I guess I'll go with Kendall because it seems like Kendall's going to watch out for me, and then when Kendall's not watching out for him, he just kind of goes back and working in his own self-interest. And by the end of the season, he's not only kind of how do they describe it, like jumping girlfriends or like jumping status in terms of girlfriend or something like that.
Yes, punching up or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's also just like looking at Tom and like, I don't want to have a soul. Like, fuck this. It's fun to be thrown in the air by Proud Boys because I want to sue Greenpeace, a organization that seems like it's doing a lot of good in this world. Uh, just a really like fascinating person to watch as he's gone from being, little Greg the Egg to someone that seems like he's kind of coming into his own a bit. I wonder if he'll get a little bit more to do next season or not.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I mean, yeah, because like to that point, right, at one point, Logan's like, "We even got little Greggy," It's like, and then Tom, I think in the finale, just blatantly said to his face, "Dude, you're a joke. You embarrass yourself in front of Congress.
Yeah.
Like, what else you gonna do if you're not gonna ride with me?"
Yeah.
And Greg, to his credit, so you know what, you're right. I got nothing else going on.
The bottom of the top? He was like, yes. Like, absolutely. Honestly, a great pitch by Tom there. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
amazing work.
Um, I'd say alongside that, we've had some nice press going on about this. There was a lot of work written about Nicholas Braun and his status in New York City as a more eligible bachelor and a figure of demois. Just this past week, we had the big New Yorker profile about Jeremy Strong getting into his method acting abilities and philosophy on acting and work and stuff. But and we had before the show started, there was a huge write up by Hunter Harris and Vulture about the Succession cast in Italy. Like it's awesome just to see so much rallying around the show, and it definitely seems to have gotten a bit more popular due to the longer than expected delay between seasons 2 and 3, and now just the anticipation for season 4 just unbearable. I have to imagine that it's going to be a little bit because they haven't started filming yet.
Yeah. I imagine we'll either get it late next year, maybe 2023. But um, well, is there anything that you want to see? I mean, it's kind of set up now where it's like the three siblings versus Logan and Tom, and I guess Greg. Obviously, the stuff between Shiv and Tom is going to be super interesting. She might just go
Yeah,
full scorched earth on
yeah.
him.
You see her face on the end, like she knows.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are you hoping to see? What do you think? What do you think
Yeah,
we'll see? Anything like that comes to mind?
I'd love to see the continuation of the unified front between the siblings. I
Yeah.
thought, I mean, I thought the lead up, when they're in the car driving
Hmm.
to see Logan, I thought that was so riveting, and like seeing them and like you're on the edge of your seat, being like, Roman, don't bitch out and go back to dad. Like stay with them, right? So I want to see that continue because it would change the dynamic of the show with Kendall no longer being the only outsider. So I think there's plot wise, there's plenty of new directions to go down, even if the central conflict is more or less the same. Who's going to take over the company? Who's going to succeed Logan? And now that's again, it's kind of been flipped on its head because Logan's selling the
Yeah.
company, right? Something you probably never would have thought to see coming when you watch most of the rest of the show. So I think season 4 has a ton of potential, and honestly, I'm sure Armstrong has had plenty of time to sit with this because he wrote season 3 so long ago, of course, due to the COVID
COVID.
delays affecting starting the production. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of my favorite scenes was just them going back and forth and like convincing Roman that this was like the only move that they really had. Um and then when he's like, I think we would make a pretty good team, even though it's a little fucked up to say, like I I would just really like to see them, whatever their venture is going to be, starting their own company together, a rival company, how they're going to go about it. I hope Skarsgård is a continued mainstay within the cast just because I thought he was absolutely awesome. And um, you know, I think I would like to see less of Caroline. She was great, and just so brutal and just so tough to like her.
Yeah.
Very hateable character. Um, but yeah, man, just I'm all in on the show. Whatever wherever they take us, I'm down for it at this point. So
Yeah. Yeah,
nothing not.
and I think thinking about it the last few years, right? Like season 2 came out 2019, same year as Watchmen and Fleabag season 2. Season 3 comes out 2021. I mean, I feel like the 2021 crown, it's pretty undisputed this time. It's the best show.
I know I see all these like best of TV lists that have Succession like eighth. Like, no,
Just
sorry. Like,
shitty taste is what that is.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll be talking a little bit more about Succession later on in the week. Why don't we move on to West Side Story, 2021, I should say, the Steven Spielberg retelling. I guess a slight change around. He made a few modifications to the structure of the movie, but
Yeah,
obviously,
second adaptation of the original musical, you could say. Uh,
yeah.
first uh, film since the 1961 original film.
Which won 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Beloved. Um, why don't we just start with our general reactions to the movie, then maybe we can get into some of the stuff around the movie, which I think is
Yeah.
also important to touch on. I saw it this weekend. Theater was not packed, and the box
No.
office is going to reflect that,
Mm.
or has reflected that. Um, However, I thought this movie was just really delightful. Um, as someone that's seen the 1961 West Side Story, but not in a very long time, I didn't remember all the little aspects, so I had to go back and read about some of the tweaks and the changes that Spielberg made. But overall, I felt like this movie was overwhelming in the best way possible. It was loud, it was colorful, there was a ton of movement, a ton of action. I thought the performances for the most part were really, really good. And so I was really, really pleased with this. A movie I didn't think we even needed. So the fact that I liked it this much, I was really surprised by. What did you think about it, though?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I think just the Spielberg tackling the material, adding his flourishes to the film. The camera is so alive. Some of the numbers, like America, just really enhanced due to the changes to the choreography and the staging, but just like Spielberg's touch just really shines through. Production design. the lighting, a lot of it just really dynamite. And yeah, I mean, it's a classic story, right? And the plot wise, even you don't really remember it, it's you pick it up quick. It's Romeo and Juliet, but the subtle tweaks, I also too had to look some of those up. Didn't really recall, seeing them too much live, but um, I really liked it. I think it's just really fun, and I think especially the first half of the film is like really really tremendous. I think in general both movies, the second half is kind of the weaker side of things, kind of like the second half of Romeo and Juliet, I guess. But
Sure.
yeah, I liked it quite a bit, and I honestly was thinking a lot about Little Women 2019, something up from Greta Gerwig, something else that you know when it was announced, the usefulness, the need for it kind of came into question. In Little Women's case, Greta Gerwig, that's really going to be the follow up to Lady Bird. Is that really what we're going to do? And then she makes, bar none, the best version of Little Women to date. You're like, oh, that's why. West
Yeah.
Side Story 2021, kind of the same thing. Spielberg getting up there in age. Is this really what you want one of your last few movies to be, an adaptation of a film that won Best Picture? Like, is there something more to say with that? And I think he definitely earned it. He definitely justified it because it's just a really impressive creation.
Yeah, and Spielberg has talked a lot about why he wanted to do this as a child. He just like loved this movie, and it heavily influences the way he watched movies, his love for movies. So it makes a lot of sense that he would want to. Again, did we need it? You could even still say no, but I think this is really really well done movie. I think one of the things that made me feel a little skeptical at first was who was cast as the leads as
Mm,
Tony and Maria. And when you think about the 1961 movie, I actually don't really think about Tony and Maria that much. I think
no,
about just
they're
the,
the
the
least
sharks and
interesting parts of the whole story. They always have been.
totally. And especially when you think about the 1961 film, you have Natalie Wood cast as Maria, who is Hispanic from Puerto Rico, and is white. So
Yes,
there's an
Natalie
issue
Wood,
there.
not Latina in any
Yes,
stretch.
not Latina. Yes,
Yeah,
and Richard Bamer just I think giving a very like wooden performance, like not very showy. And I like you said, the parts aren't necessarily made to be super showy. Everyone else kind of gets like Bernardo and Riff are and Anita are much more interesting characters, just period.
yeah,
But um Elgort has been, I think widely criticized for being a pretty wooden performer himself, for being kind of oafish at times on screen. How did you
yeah.
feel like he did in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, and alongside that, you have the controversy of Al Gore even being in the film at all due to the
Right.
allegations against him. And for what it's worth, this movie was made, and he was cast before those allegations were publicized. On the other hand, he did still do press for the film, so they didn't exactly run away from the fact that he was in the movie. Either way, uh, yeah, I thought he was okay with the singing. Honestly, like he was
Yeah.
good enough. And then some of the other scenes, even though it's Tony Kushner dialogue, and in general, I think Tony Kushner did a pretty good job with the script in terms of having people tweak a script. He's a nice person to hire for this, obviously, given his resume. But yeah, I think some of the other scenes, like like Al Gore just doesn't really have those chops. And like think of a notorious flop from a few years ago, the Goldfinch. Same kind of thing. He just really can't carry some of that material. I think the saving grace of the film, though, is that Rachel Ziegler, new on the scene, as of right now, only 20 years old, is really great as Maria and still does a pretty good job of trying to sell that chemistry because El Gore isn't exactly bringing too much to it.
Yeah, I thought Al Gore. Maybe I liked his performance a little bit more than you did. I think probably the thing that stood out most for me is he just feels a lot older than a lot of the people in the film, and
It's just true
he
in
is.
real life.
Yeah, he is 27, and Ziegler is 20 at this point. So when they filmed this, even
Yeah, I think
younger.
she was like 18 when they made it.
and she looks 18 and she feels 18, and the fact that she gives the performance that she does, she's the real story here, and I feel like she may even have a Oscar worthy performance in this film. um, but she's just awesome, and I think Spielberg does a really good job of like fleshing out her character more than in the original, so I think she's given a little bit more to work with. um, but yeah, I thought they had a little bit better chemistry. I think about the scene of them like on the fire escapes, which first of all
Mhm.
looks incredible and looks so realistic, but like the way like Al Gore is kind of like looking through the gate at her like really starry eyed. I felt like
Yeah.
I felt some chemistry there, or them behind the benches or the bleachers at the gym. I
Oh
thought
yeah,
was also
the
really
dance scene's
convincing.
really good between them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree. I think as it goes on, almost when they're getting to the point where they're like trying to like get away, like after the fight, that's when I feel like Al Gore really just did not meet the moment. Like when Valentina tells him that Anita said that Maria is dead because Chino shot her, and Al Gore is like acting all upset. I didn't think that's not going to go on the highlight reel for him. I'll put
No,
it that way.
I actually didn't mind his New York accent. I think part of that's because I believe he grew up in New York, so I guess it makes sense that he knows how to do it. But Ziegler, also from New York, Bergen County, New Jersey, right over there. Um, they auditioned tens of thousands for this film. This was Ziegler's first feature film role. Um, they nailed it. Definitely was a labor of love to make that work. But uh, really, hats off to them for finding her, and also she hit the jackpot because she's been cast as Snow White in the upcoming action adaptation by Disney, and also has a role in Shazam 2 from DC. So Ziegler is a fast rising star, but truly the saving grace, I'd say, of the film. Although I did think there were two other like really big showy performances that are kind of central to this version of West Side Story being so good.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about those. Just want to say real quick, one thing that I think we should give Ziegler a lot of credit for that Natalie Wood did not do in the original was Ziegler actually sang her
Oh yeah,
songs, which Natalie Wood did not do. And Ziegler, her voice is incredible. She's just an absolute dynamite star, going to be on the rise here in Hollywood moving forward. So definitely, this is going to put her on the map, and we'll be talking about her a lot more in the future. I'm gonna guess that one of those people that stood out to you was Mike Faced. Is that right?
yes, as Riff. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought he was amazing.
he was amazing. I was not familiar with Mike Faced, although upon for further review, he was one of the original cast members in Dear Evan Hansen, a theater background from him. But yeah, he's great as Riff. Just has the charisma, but he has the edge. There's not as much edge with the Riff character in the 1961 film, and I really like how some of the tweaks to the screenplay benefit this edging up of the Riff character. Like he's not likable. The Jets in general are made less likable because their nativist attitudes, their racist attitudes toward the Puerto Ricans are not hidden or sanded down in this. I like how the screenplay kind of unites the Jets and the Sharks under the guise of gentrification. Robert Moses tearing down Lower Manhattan in the West Side to build Lincoln Center. I really like how that's like an establishing framing device for this conflict, but they still don't run away from why it's like a racial conflict between these two groups that both feel helpless for different reasons. And Mike Face is just really tremendous as the leader of the Jets.
Yeah, he's a scene stealer. He has a very distinct face, which I think helps.
Yeah.
But that edge clearly comes across, and he gets a couple of scenes where it's like very obvious, like the scene where they get the gun and he like, the guy's like, do you know what you'd even do with this, son? He puts the gun to his head, and you're just like, oh, okay, this guy's got a little bit of a screw loose. Um, but yeah, he comes across as pretty menacing and um still likable in some sense, like I like still when he got stabbed, I was like, damn, like no, like Riff. Um, but yeah, I thought he was great, and I really liked the change that they made in the song "Cool," to make it just between him and Tony instead of I believe in the original all the Jets did it,
Yeah.
and so making it a duet between them I thought was a nice change up and really playing alongside El Gore's Tony, who is kind of like toned back. You can really see Riff's like
Riff,
intensity.
don't do that, man.
Yo, Riff, don't do it. So who else stood out to you?
Yeah, I think the other obvious highlight is Ariana DeBose
Mhm.
as Anita. Obviously, Anita in the original film was played by Rita Moreno, so tough shoes to follow.
Yeah,
But Ariana DeBose does have theater background as well. She was in the original Hamilton cast as part of the ensemble, and I think part of the reason that she's so good is the script is getting punched up to kind of give her more work, and they really blow out the America scene, which in general is already a show-stopping moment. But
yep.
in this version, they really make it eye-catching and like huge production values, similar to some of the group dances and songs in the Heights, for example. And yeah, her presence is so essential, but she's really a bigger character than Bernardo, honestly.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I thought that America is seen as that's just the Emmy or the Oscar reel right there. That whole
Yeah,
thing, and
of
just
course,
to kind
doing
of
her own singing again as a theater person.
yeah, and obviously her own dancing as well. To Rita Moreno won, I believe it was Best Supporting Actress
Yeah,
for her role as Anita back in the day. So anyone stepping into these shoes is gonna be a little bit behind the eight ball. But I thought Ariana DeBose was fantastic. The way she swished around that dress, similar to Rita Moreno, was incredible. Her dancing was amazing, but just her overall like presence in the movie, she at, and in one way had like the motherly presence, but in another way had like a very like edgy, like I'm making my own way. I loved in the was it the America scene or I can't remember when they were in the church praying and she kept oh no it was tonight
yeah,
when they were singing tonight and she keeps talking about like wanting to jump Bernardo's bones in the church and they kept shushing her. I just thought she was like super magnetic in that scene and just like she really stood out to me from that. But yeah, I agree. She was great. I also really like David Alvarez as Bernardo. I thought he
yeah.
was a good I thought he matched Riff pretty well for the most part. So I thought that was great. And obviously he's got to keep up with Ariana DeBose. So there it
Yeah.
takes something there for sure.
Yeah. I think in terms of changes to the film, I think one of the most meaningful and noticeable would be that when there's Spanish dialogue, it's not subtitled. And I really
Yes.
love that, honestly. It's never a question of what they're talking about, mood wise, it's still communicated. And a lot of times they basically translate it in English in the next sentence or next few sentences anyway. As someone that knows a little bit of Spanish, that was really fun for me to try and like directly translate
All
it in
of them.
my head as they were talking. But I think that's a really good job to highlight how they're different. Again, in the movie, uh, the sharks, the Puerto Rican characters, the little bronzered up because they're not. None of them are Latinos, and there's way less Spanish in it. So I think that was a really important way to color in those characters. Also, I have to say actually, I was ask you, how do you feel about the Rita Moreno's new role in this? Obviously, the Doc character replaced with Doc's widow, Valentina, played by Rita Moreno. Obviously, I guess we said the original uh, Anita, and now, at the end of the film, Valentina gets one of the key songs. It's switched, passed over to her. How did you feel about that presence?
Yeah, I want to start with the song first. I liked uh I liked her getting a moment, right? A nod to an original from the 1961 film. Um, and I thought she sang it okay. I do wish other members of the cast had gotten a chance to like sing maybe other parts of it or like it jumped around a little bit, but I didn't really have too much of a problem with her getting that. Her as Valentina, I thought was like a nice presence, but overall, I wasn't totally like blown away by the part.
I
And
agree.
the change didn't really matter that much to me. I guess she also gets the moment where she gets to like shame the Jets when they are potentially going to rape Anita.
Yeah.
And so I think she got a couple of solid moments, but to me it didn't really matter too much. But it seems like you felt the same.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
What about I wanted to see how you felt about Corey Stoll in this movie. I I don't know why. Something about the way he played this, I just found really funny. I don't
yeah,
know if it was his accent, I don't know if it was just his overall demeanor, but something felt a little off to me. But
yeah,
like not in like a horrible way.
sure. Yeah, in general, I'm a Corey Stoll fan, but I don't remember. Is this a new character from the film? Because in a sense, you're kind of like duplicating efforts with Officer Krupke. Like, there's a song dedicated to Officer Krupke in the police department, which is an amazing moment. Do we really need a separate police figure with a lot of lines? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so Lieutenant Schrank was in the original, played by Simon
Okay.
Oakland, but I think he's supposed to just be more the like hard ass to Krupke's like
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
goof.
I guess he communicates the impending doom that is the raising of the
Yeah,
West Side with the gentrification and everything. So that kind of puts that out in the open. But really, he's only in the beginning, you know? On the other hand, I kind of like how that scene unfolds because uh, you get a guy with a nail driven through his ear.
yeah.
They don't really spill any blood in the original movie.
No, so it definitely adds a bit more edge to it. Um, just talking about changes. One thing I wanted to go back to, I forgot to ask. They did change. I feel pretty. Where I believe before it was like before they went out today or before they went out to the dance, I think, and then they moved it
That's
towards the
right.
end of the film, right before they Maria finds out that Tony killed Bernardo. How did you feel about that change?
Yeah, I guess I don't know the text well enough to really notice the difference, but that is definitely a stark change. You're really saving to the last possible moment with that.
I liked the change a lot because not only did it show, I think, how people within that community were working, and a lot of them
Mm,
were in these like cleaning jobs. But it also just was like super fun to watch Rachel Ziegler dancing around this department store, this like
mhm.
1960s department store. Just looked really cool, and she played it perfectly. And I don't know if that song adds a lot of meaning to the movie. Um, in terms of like moving the plot along. So
Yeah.
for me, it didn't really. I thought it was like a nice change just because it was different and looked cool. But what else about the movie? I mean,
Well,
what did you like? What didn't you like?
yeah. So I think this is kind of a key thing, right? West Side Story, all versions of it, the songs are tremendous. You know,
Mhm.
lyrics by Steven Sondheim, who just recently passed away. The songs are tremendous, and so many of the songs really hit. Tonight, America, even something that's a little detoury, like Officer Krupke. Like there's just dynamite songs, even the Jet song. You don't really like the Jets too much, but I really do like saying when you're a jet all the
Yeah,
way.
all the
Like
way.
it's just really catchy shit, you know.
Mhm.
And I think all the production values, the acting, the songs really build up the film, build up the story, and they that's kind of where you have to stand with. Do you care enough about the some of the weaknesses of the story, of the plot? Maria and Tony, not the most interesting characters in the story, and still not like super developed. You just kind of have to believe that these are star-crossed hormonal lovers. There's not logic with this. They just love each other. I think for some people, Maria still wanting to be with Tony after Tony kills Bernardo doesn't make any sense. And I think you just kind of have to accept this is Romeo and Juliet and that they're just dumb kids.
Yeah, I mean that was my whole thing. I was thinking for the last like 20 minutes, like, there's no way this relationship could ever work. Like, what are you guys
Right.
doing? But yeah, you just kind of have to suspend belief, I think, a bit for that. A couple things I just wanted to like point out that I think obviously the 1961 is a classic, always going to be considered that way. But why I think this is like a better movie technology's just come so far where you can like the camera moved around so much in this movie and moved around with the dancing, and it made it so much more engaging than just
Yes.
single camera in one place watching them dance around. Really loved that. And some of the shots in this, I mean, if you look at the two backgrounds we have on YouTube, one of them's at the dance and one of them is during America outside while Anita is dancing. But just like the way the angles that Spielberg picked, I think about the fight between the sharks and the jets near the end in that salt warehouse, and it's like
Yeah.
shot overhead as they
Top
walk
down with the
in.
shadows. So
Yeah,
good.
and the shadows walk towards each other. Just amazing stuff. And there's just moments like that all throughout where Spielberg's eye is just, he's still a master at this. So uh really, really engaging film. Music was good, performances were good. Is this thing gonna clean up at the Oscars again? Is this gonna be 1962 Oscars all over?
Yeah, so I mean, 10 wins, 11 noms. I don't think we're going that far with any film this year, but I would definitely think Best Picture is one of the safer bets for this film, honestly.
Hmm.
You know, it's been critically adored and it's well-known property to film fans. So I don't see why that would change. You know, it's definitely in that mix, you know. Spielberg director, I'd say very unlikely given how uh, busy that category is almost every year. I think, so there's obviously probably some down ballot stuff that'll get noticed for with music and production and costumes and stuff. But
Yeah,
I think the key things to watch are Ziegler and Moreno
yeah,
performances. And Ziegler definitely seems like the more likely of the two, but Best Actress is also going to be a slugfest this year. There's a ton of contenders. So
yeah.
I'm not going to predict a Best Picture win right now, but I definitely think it'll be being nominated, and that's despite the poor box office.
Yeah, I think this has a good chance to get a lot of love at the Oscars. I think you're right. No movie is probably ever going to do what this movie did in 1961 again, but I think there's a high chance that this movie will get a lot of nominations and probably a couple wins. So,
Yeah,
it's funny because I don't think any of the male performances were that good. I mean, Feist was probably or Face was probably the closest one, but I don't think he'll get
yeah,
a
I agree.
nomination. So, all right. Well, I think that does it for us for this week, Dave. What should the people be watching or listening to for next week?
Yeah, so we have a lot of big things right here before the holidays, right? I think chief among them, Spider-Man: No Way Home finally coming out, all but assured to be the highest grossing domestic film of the year. We also have Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley coming out, his first film since The Shape of Water, which of course won Best Picture and won Del Toro Best Director a few years back. We also have a movie I'm very excited for coming out on Wednesday on Netflix, The Hand of God, the latest film from Paolo Sorrentino, who we love so much from The Young Pope and the New Pope. Also, Station 11 on HBO Max, the miniseries is kicking off. Mackenzie Davis, the reviews are really strong on that. And Survivor season 41, we haven't talked about it yet. It's about to air its finale, so really excited to get into the new era of Survivor.
Absolutely. And as Dave mentioned before, our best movie or best TV of the year will be coming out later this week. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod, and at nostalgiapod on Twitter. See you next week.